video, we will go over how to edit and delete a purchase after it has been completed. We are already logged into the retail operations, so we will open the Document Center on the Tree menu and go to the Transaction Journal. The journal is where you can pull up your sales for any given day or date range, view those sales, and make changes and delete. The report dates are always defaulted to the current day, which you can change by using the Calendar drop-down and selecting one of the Quick Single Day options, a Quick Date Range option, or you can use the calendar options at the bottom to change the year, select a quick month for that year, or set specific dates using the Calendar Date Range or Single Date options. We will select to look back at our sales in April, and then click the View Report button to bring up the list of transactions that occurred during that date range. Aside from selecting a date to look at, you can also key in a specific transaction number using the Specific Tran Number radio button. Selecting that option will change the date fields to a single field for entering in your transaction number. As you can see, the transaction number always begins with 290 and is 12 digits in length. Using this option allows you to bring up a single transaction for viewing and editing. There are also two ways to view your transaction journal. The default view is the Standard Journal, which shows a more condensed version, as opposed to the Detail Journal. You can also select to show your cost and margin on the report by checking the option to show the cost profit indicator when it's pulled up in the Standard Journal view only. At this point, we have pulled a Standard Journal for April of this year. We are viewing all sales, but we can narrow that down using the filter options in the list on the right. There are several options for narrowing down your list. For instance, selecting Tender Cash will filter out and display only transactions involving cash, whether it was tendered in full as cash or partially. And going back to No Filter will bring back all of the transactions. Now let's go over some of the things you can do with the transactions listed in our journal. To begin, anytime something is color-coded and hyperlinked or underlined, that means you can click it to do something. For instance, clicking the transaction number will open the receipt on top of our journal. We'll come back to the receipt in a few minutes. Back in our journal, you can see the tendering column also has a hyperlink. Customers with integrated credit card processing can click the Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover, and debit tenders to open a window that'll display their card approval data. And scrolling over to the very far right of the journal, we see a button for adding or changing the commissionable associates assigned to the transaction. Clicking this button opens a window displaying the current commission settings with a button to change those settings. Clicking the Change Commissions button will open a window with your list of commissionable associates to select and assign to the transaction. There are also a few hidden editing options within the journal. If you right-click on the Shift column, you can reassign the shift. We only recommend this when a shift needs to be moved from an offline mode transaction or to move a few transactions that were started on a new shift to the previous shift for simpler daily reconciliation. The associate also has a link that will open a window where you can change the associate tied to the sale. When you select a new associate and click the OK button, the journal will redraw and the new associate will be displayed. And on the customer name field, you can right-click to either assign a customer if one was not on the transaction, or change the customer that was assigned to the sale. Notice when we right-click on one with the customer assigned, it will first ask us if we want to unassign the customer. Then, when we right-click it again, it will ask us if we want to assign a customer. We can use the quick find at the bottom of the customer list to find and select our customer faster. And when we click the OK button, the journal will display our newly assigned customer. Our last hidden change is in the receipt view we had up earlier when we clicked the transaction number. At the bottom of the receipt view, there are 3 ways to display the receipt. The original receipt replica has a copy of what was printed at the time of the sale. The full sheet shows an 8.5 by 11 printout of the sale, and the screen view displays what was on the associate's point of sale screen. Notice in the screen view receipt that the word total is hyperlinked. Clicking total will open the tender modifier window, which displays all of the different tenders, cash, check, Visa, etc., with the amount the customer paid in the tender field that was selected at the time of the sale. You can change how the sale was tendered by removing the amount paid from the current tender and setting that amount into one of the other tender fields. Notice the cash, check, debit, and EBT fields are open to edit on both the left and right sides of the tender modifier window. This is so you can put in how much the customer tendered on the left and the amount of the sale on the right to calculate a change due value in the middle. The other tender options only require you enter an amount on the right, which will back adjust the amount the customer tendered. So if I want to change this transaction from cash to Visa, I would wipe out both the customer and amount tendered fields for the cash, and then set the amount in the Visa field. Note that the bottom line total cannot be read. If the total is read, then the tendered amounts do not add up to the sale total. To balance our total, we'll need to set the new amount for the Visa by tabbing off or moving into another tender field. Now we see the total price is green and good to save. Now, if the customer got cash back from their Visa purchase, we can simply set the amount tendered for the Visa and then set the cash as a negative amount to represent the cash given back to the customer. Note that store credits and line of credit tendering, whether it be removing from or changing the total to either of those payment methods, does not interact with the line of credit or store credit system in EncomPos. It will simply change the tendering done on the transaction. Once we click the OK button, you will see the receipt tendering has changed. And when we refresh the transaction journal by clicking the View Report button, the tendering will also be updated. Please note that if you are using the QuickBooks Data Feed feature in EncomPos, you will need to regenerate your QuickBooks export file to account for the changes made in the transaction journal. Okay, one last thing to cover on the transaction journal, and that is the Post Void button located below the Report Search Filter list. The Post Void button will void a selected receipt, so the first thing to be certain of is that you have the correct transaction selected to void. Once a transaction is voided, it cannot be removed. You simply must re-ring the sale to get it back. With our transaction selected, we'll click the Post Void button. When voiding a sale, you must first select whether the items on the sale are going to be returned to your inventory or not for resale. Leaving the box checked will adjust the inventory up, and unchecking the box will leave the inventory counts alone. If the sale is made up of only merchandise, then once you click the OK button, you will simply come back to the transaction journal, and the voided sale will display that it was post-voided in the tender column. Should the sale we want to void have event signups, such as this sale, when we post-void it, we'll get our first prompt to adjust merchandise counts, and then we'll get a prompt for each person signed up for an event to either void the payment but keep the customer on the event roster, or void the payment and cancel their event signup, removing them from the roster altogether. Note that post-voiding a sale that was tendered against a line of credit account will not interact with that customer's line of credit. You still need to go to the line of credit account and remove the payment or charge manually. Additionally, if you are using integrated credit card processing through EncomPos, you cannot post-void a sale tendered against a credit card. The sale must be returned through the point of sale to issue the credit back to the customer's card, as their card data is not stored except as a token in their profile to use through the point of sale. And that covers all of the ways to use the transaction journal to alter or delete a sale after it has been completed.